Welcome to my channel. In a small piece of everyday change lies a story richer than most would ever imagine. A simple 10-cent coin, often tossed aside or slipped into a piggy bank, carries with it decades of history, a tale of craftsmanship, and in rare cases, a fortune hiding in plain sight. Today, we take a deep dive into one such coin that has stirred excitement in the world of coin collectors, the 1984 Roosevelt Dime. To the average person, a 1984 Roosevelt Dime minted in Philadelphia is just another coin. Light, shiny, easy to miss. But for those who understand numismatics, the art and science of coin collecting, this particular coin can represent something far more valuable. Not just in monetary terms, but in its legacy, symbolism, and scarcity. It's strange to think how something worth 10 cents could hold the potential to sell for over $150,000 in the right conditions. But that's exactly what makes this story so fascinating. The journey of the Roosevelt Dime began decades before 1984. It replaced the Mercury dime in 1946, shortly after the death of President Franklin D. Roosevelt. Chosen as a tribute to his leadership during World War II and his role in founding the March of Dimes to fight polio, the dime became a lasting symbol of Roosevelt's legacy. John R. Sinnock, the chief engraver of the U.S. Mint, designed the coin. On its obverse, the profile of Roosevelt, resolute and calm. On its reverse, a torch flanked by an olive branch and an oak branch, symbols of liberty, peace, and strength. Fast forward to the year 1984. America was deep into the Reagan era. The Cold War loomed, the economy was shifting, and technology was creeping into daily life. In Philadelphia, where the mint had been stamping coins since the nation's birth, millions of dimes were produced that year. Over 676 million, to be exact. But not all of them were created equal. Some coins, due to tiny, barely detectable mistakes during the minting process, were destined to stand out. It could be a double strike, a missing mint mark, a dramatic die clash, or even a misaligned planchet. These errors, imperfections to the mint, but treasures to collectors, turn ordinary coins into extraordinary finds. And in the case of one 1984 Roosevelt dime, the anomaly was so significant, and its condition so pristine, that it fetched a jaw-dropping price. But how do you spot such a coin? How can one dime out of hundreds of millions rise to the level of numismatic royalty? That's where the story really starts to get exciting. Because the key isn't just in the date, or the P mint mark stamped on the coin's obverse. It's in the condition, the strike, and the microscopic details that most eyes would simply pass over. A sharp eye, a bit of knowledge, and a little luck, that's the combination that can turn spare change into a windfall. Imagine someone pulling a handful of coins from a drawer, sorting through them absent-mindedly, and stopping suddenly. A glint. A difference. Something not quite right. The shine is perfect. The edge is sharper. The details on Roosevelt's hair and face are unusually crisp. That's what makes all the difference. A perfect storm of mint condition, rare error, and historical context. In the palm of a hand, a small silver-colored coin rests quietly. It seems so ordinary. Light. Thin. Smooth to the touch. It could be sitting in a jar of spare change, passed unknowingly at a gas station, or resting in the lining of an old wallet. But this coin, this 1978 one dime from the United States, carries with it more than its 10-cent face value. It carries a story, decades in the making. A story most people would never guess when they glance at it or let it slide into a vending machine slot. But for those who know what to look for those who understand what this coin truly represents, it holds secrets that could turn an ordinary moment into an extraordinary discovery. In the year 1978, the world was shifting. America was recovering from the scars of the Vietnam War. A new generation was growing into its voice. Gas prices were rising, the Cold War simmered in the background, and technology was starting to change how people lived, worked, and connected. In the midst of all this, the U.S. Mint continued its daily work, quiet, consistent, and precise. Coins were being struck by the millions. Quarters, nickels, pennies, and of course, the humble dime. That year, the Roosevelt dime was already over 3 decades into its run. First introduced in 1946, the design was meant to honor President Franklin D. Roosevelt, who had passed away the year before. His connection to the dime wasn't just symbolic, it was deeply personal. Roosevelt had founded the March of Dimes to fight polio, the very disease that had shaped his life. And so, when it came time to honor his legacy, the 10-cent coin was chosen as his permanent tribute. His profile was engraved with care by John R. Sinek, and to this day, his face remains there, a quiet but powerful reminder of courage, leadership, and resilience. By 1978, the Roosevelt Dime had become so familiar, so common, that few people gave it a second thought. That's the irony of it. Sometimes the most valuable things hide in plain sight. While billions of these coins were minted over the years, not all of them were exactly the same. Some were struck with sharper details. Some were made with minute errors, imperfections that would be cast aside by the mint but become golden opportunities for collectors. And some, like a small handful of the 1978 dimes, were preserved in such flawless condition that they became worth far more than their modest denomination. The Philadelphia and Denver mints were the primary sources of the 1978 Roosevelt dime. The San Francisco Mint also produced a limited number, mostly for proof sets, high-quality coins not meant for circulation. Most people never knew where their dimes were made. A small mint mark, a tiny D or S, was all that told the story. And even then, many coins from Philadelphia had no mint mark at all, which only added to the mystery. Every coin begins its life as a blank disc of metal, a planchet. It's fed into a coining press where thousands of pounds of pressure force the engraved image into the metal. The result, when done perfectly, is a clean, sharp coin. But no machine is infallible. Sometimes the dies shift. Sometimes the alignment is off. Sometimes the pressure is uneven. These tiny accidents, measured in fractions of millimeters, are the kind of thing that transforms a common coin into a rare gem. And in the world of coin collecting, rarity is everything. The fascinating part is how many people touch these coins every day and never stop to look. They pass through hands, pockets, purses, parking meters, and soda machines without a second thought. But hidden among them could be a dime so rare, so pristine, that it commands a value far beyond anything its creators imagined. In the case of the 1978 Roosevelt dime, that value has climbed as high as $165,000, not for every coin, but for the rarest and most perfect examples. Coins that have survived decades without a single scratch. Coins struck in a way that makes them nearly one of a kind. Coins that collectors around the world would do almost anything to own. This isn't just about metal and numbers. It's about history. It's about storytelling. It's about the quiet thrill of discovery. It's about someone, somewhere, pulling a coin out of a drawer, flipping it over, and realizing they're holding a tiny fortune. It doesn't look different to the untrained eye. But the weight of its value is very real. It's in the details, the sharpness of the strike, the clarity of the features, the presence or absence of a mint mark. It's in the mystery of how a coin like that came to be, and how it managed to survive, unnoticed, until now. In the world of spare change, most coins come and go without notice. They slide between fingers, disappear into vending machines, and clink against each other in pockets and purses. They're everywhere, yet invisible. But sometimes, a single coin, a coin that millions of people have passed over without thinking, hides something special. That's the case with the 2005 Roosevelt Dime. A 10-cent piece that could be worth not 10 cents, but up to $125,000. And it all starts with a story that goes far deeper than metal and numbers. It begins, like many stories of modern American coinage, with tradition. Since 1946, the face of Franklin Delano Roosevelt has appeared on the dime. A man who guided the United States through the Great Depression and World War II, Roosevelt left a legacy of leadership, but also one that touched lives in a more personal way. He battled polio and became a symbol of perseverance. His involvement in founding the March of Dimes gave the coin a deeper meaning. It wasn't just currency. It became a tribute. And when the mint placed his profile on the obverse of the dime, it wasn't merely a design choice. It was a message. A story told in silver and copper. By 2005, the Roosevelt dime had already been in circulation for nearly 60 years. Countless versions had been produced, with subtle variations year after year. Some were flawless. Some were average. And some were completely unexpected. That year, the Denver Mint, marked by a small D on the front of the coin, produced hundreds of millions of dimes. Most of them followed the standard pattern. But just a few slipped through with something different. Something that makes collectors lean in closer. Something that, to the trained eye, reveals value far beyond what's printed on its face. At first glance, the 2005 D Roosevelt Dime looks exactly as it should. The familiar profile of Roosevelt, clean and thoughtful. The date stamped beneath his neck. The mint mark to the right, slightly above the shoulder. On the reverse, the classic design that hadn't changed in decades, a torch flanked by an olive branch and an oak branch, representing liberty, peace, and strength. These are symbols Americans had seen all their lives. And yet, among these seemingly identical coins, a small number possess traits so rare that they transformed from everyday currency into coveted treasures. How does such a transformation happen? Sometimes it's an error during production. A misaligned die. A double strike. A missing clad layer. Other times, it's about condition. A coin that, for whatever reason, was preserved from day one, never touched, never scratched, never circulated. Or it could be a combination of both, an error in minting and a pristine surface. These factors, especially when they overlap, create value. Not just sentimental value, but real monetary value. The kind that turns heads at auctions. The kind that leads collectors to bid higher and higher, knowing they may never see another like it again. Some of the rarest 2005 D Roosevelt Dimes feature extraordinary strike-through errors, where foreign objects or debris interfered with the minting process, leaving behind bizarre and fascinating impressions. Others show unusual die cracks or doubling, minting flaws that are essentially fingerprints of the machinery malfunctioning for a split second. That momentary hiccup creates something no machine can repeat exactly. It creates uniqueness. And in the world of numismatics, uniqueness is everything. There's something thrilling about that. The idea that a coin, just like any other in appearance, could be something vastly different beneath the surface. A hidden rarity that someone might carry around for years, completely unaware. It could be tossed into a tip jar. Dropped into a parking meter. Given as change at a fast food counter. Until one day, someone with a sharp eye and a little knowledge pulls it aside, inspects the details, and realizes what they've found. That's how treasures are uncovered, not in vaults, but in everyday life. For the 2005 D Roosevelt Dime, the market has spoken. Some examples, particularly those in mint state with rare error features, have skyrocketed in value. One such coin, carefully graded and authenticated, achieved the almost unbelievable price of $125,000. A figure that seems surreal for something most people wouldn't think twice about. But that's the magic of coins. They are snapshots of history, objects of art, technical achievements, and sometimes, unintentional masterpieces, and perhaps the most remarkable part of this story is that there could be more out there. Untouched. Undiscovered. Sitting quietly in the world, waiting for the right moment to be seen. That's what makes this more than a lesson in coin collecting. It's a reminder to pay attention. To look closely at the things we take for granted. Because once in a while, something small enough to fit between your fingers holds a value no one expected, and a story worth sharing.